All right, it is Monday, November 18th. I checked. Time to go to the office. Was definitely beat up after CrossFit and had to nap a little. This mic feels like it's just in the wrong spot. Anyway, so I feel like a human again, which is nice. But I do have topics to talk about on the drive in and then drive home, and these are submitted to me. So again, if you want me to talk about stuff, like just write it in the comments. I'm happy to try and figure out like how to address it. Like the other, what was it? Yesterday I did a video like just from home, like not on the commute. That was someone wanted to know like what stuff I'm interested in outside of work. So there you go. There's some insight into my life. It's super exciting. But yeah, honestly, like, I'm doing this because number one, I hate doing nothing stuck in traffic, and number two, I think it could be helpful. So if I'm able to help by going over stuff you want to hear about, let me know. So if you're comfortable leaving it in the comments because it's open-ended and generic, like that's great. If you want me to kind of go through a scenario and anonymize it and stuff, like I get that you might not want to write something out in the comments, so it's totally cool. But feel free, like shoot me a message on social media. Probably, like I will see it on LinkedIn. I have like a premium profile, so you should be able to, I think you can message me that way. Twitter, I don't even know if Blue Sky has DMs. If it does, I haven't even checked where to see them, so you can message me there. But yeah, pick a platform, send me a message. Sorry if I don't see it right away. Sometimes the notifications I have turned off because I'll get spammed by God knows what. So I periodically go like comb through them and look for things I can actually address, and not like, like join this thing for Bitcoin or something about buying watches, like. So I will go check them out. But yeah, like we've already gone through a couple of topics that were submitted in. So today's topic is going to be, again, someone left a comment around like, hey, there's a lot of stuff that they're seeing that's sort of like doom and gloom for software engineers. Like that's basically all they see. And kind of interesting if you think about it, because if this is a topic that's going to get people's emotions going, and it's relevant because of AI and over the past few years with layoffs and stuff, like there's all these things that you can, like, as someone who's trying to get attention, there's all these things you can tap into that will get emotions for people going, right? So like obviously the news is very good at this. Like anything that's going to make people feel some sort of way that's uncomfortable, they're going to make news about it. So it's just a common tactic. But I mean, there are a lot of things going on that make the situation difficult, so no denying that. But I wanted to start this off because they were saying, like, can you tell us about some of the good stuff? Like, what do we have to look forward to? Like, can we have a spin on this? And I'm happy to talk through that. But what I wanted to say before getting into it is, like, what's a good way to say this? I recognize that there's a lot of things that are going on, like layoffs, like all of the AI stuff. When you look at the job graphs and stuff, like in my opinion, they're misleading. There's a huge spike in open jobs during COVID. After the initial drop, when there was like immediate layoffs from shutdowns because companies like were just like, oh crap, we're screwed. Immediately after that, if you look at the open job positions, they skyrocket. And that's because there's a bunch of companies that are big enough that were making money from cloud tech in some way or another, and they said, hey, look, everyone's stuck at home. Everyone needs to be remote. Like, this is such a good opportunity. And all of these companies scaled ridiculously fast. Even really big companies hired on tons of people. The data's out there, go look it up. I don't have it in front of me. I'm literally driving a car. But what ends up happening, right, is like, that's not a sustainable thing. It's just not. So people were playing catch up because they were like, oh, look, like so many people are at home. Then they over-index on hiring people for it. And then what starts to happen is, especially when there's like weird things going on with the economy, so like things like interest rates affect big tech companies in a negative way. So they end up having to like try and undo it. And that results in tons of layoffs, right? Like I'm not trying to defend any company that has done this. Like I work at Microsoft. Microsoft has done layoffs. Like Amazon's done layoffs. All these companies have done layoffs. So I'm not defending it. I'm just trying to explain like this is a thing that's happening. So when you look at all of these available jobs over the past few years, and now they're getting crushed in terms of available jobs, like that was a bubble. That was a bubble. So that's the first thing I want to call out. The second thing I want to call out is like getting into being to be a software developer was never an easy thing. So I don't actually understand where this narrative came from, and I'm not saying this like directly at the person who asked about this topic, because I think it's a good topic. But I don't want people that are coming into the industry thinking like, oh, like we're so screwed now because it used to be so easy. Like, hell no, it was not ever an easy thing to get into. Just like before, anyone could go write code. Right? Like, everyone could go write code. Now, to go get a job, like, did the requirements suddenly change? No, what you're experiencing right now is that, like, there's a lot more remote work. So people are able to apply to jobs in tremendous amounts of volume because they say like, I don't need to be in that area. So you're experiencing that. That's for sure. But the requirements and all of that, like that, it's not like that suddenly got easier. Or sorry, like was easier. Now it's suddenly become more difficult. So I always like going back and like explaining, like I took it like a air quotes like traditional route to become a software developer. And when I say traditional route, I mean like, you know, you graduate high school, you're going to go for post-secondary education, and then you're going to go get your degree, then you're going to go apply for jobs. Okay, so that's the like traditional route, and very interesting. Like I guess like it's not necessarily traditional these days, which is good. There's a lot more variety in ways that you can become a software developer. But I've shared this story before. Like I did that because I wanted to have the title of software engineer, and in Canada, to be a professional software engineer, you need to meet certain requirements. So I personally set myself up to go to a school that has an accredited engineering program. That was also a requirement. It's not just any post-secondary school, sorry. And for me, like I went through 5 years of university. I went through 5 years of university and I did 6 internships. So, like when I graduate from that, I better have an unfair advantage because I worked straight at school or like on the job for 5 years. If there is no advantage from doing that, like then that's a huge waste of time. So what I'm trying to say is like that was not easy. Those are some of like the 5 hardest years of my life. And I did that so that I could enable myself to go get a job more easily. Because when I go to apply for my full-time positions, I have 2 full years of work experience from internships. Now, that's not like a magic thing because yes, those were paid internships. Was the pay good? No. But I was a student and I got paid for it, so like that's great. So you can create those opportunities. You can search for those opportunities. Like you can do things that give you unfair advantages like that. But it's not easy and it takes time. Like for me, that was 5 years. And at that point, I'm trying to think, I'd already been programming for 4 years before that. So it's not like I decided one day, like, I'm gonna be a software developer. And then like I'm not picking on boot camp people for this, by the way, but I didn't just go to a boot camp for 6 months or say, screw it, I'm gonna be self-taught for a year. That was 9 years of being being self-taught and then going to university for it. And then getting a full-time job. It's never been easy, okay? So just for the record, it's never been easy. Okay, now that's out of the way. What are the awesome things that we have to look forward to when being a software engineer? And that's going to wrap up today's conversation. No, I'm just kidding. I just need a sip of water. But wouldn't it be funny if I just ended it there because there was nothing to look forward to? No, there is a lot, and I think, truthfully, not everyone will enjoy being a software engineer, as you might expect. And I think that there's a handful of things that you need to understand that I would think make the job enjoyable. One is that you will be working with people. So if in your head you're like, I hate working with people, I can't wait to develop software so I never have to do that, you probably want to build software on your own then and never apply to jobs, because you're going to be building it with other people the entire time. So if that is uncomfortable for you, you're probably not going to enjoy it. And the second thing I would say is you probably want to love solving problems. If that's not something that excites you, you get enjoyment about being stuck on something and then overcoming it, you're not going to enjoy it. The good news is, if you do like working with people and you do like overcoming challenges, it's a great opportunity. You're going to have lots of that. So from the perspective of what things do you have to look forward to, I want to share some examples of some stuff that I've done in my career, and I'm not going to go through I don't want to use it as a highlight reel. I just want to use them as examples of things that I think are you can also do stuff like this, okay? So first of all, I started work at startups. So my internships were either at startups or small companies, and my first full-time job outside of once I had graduated was at a startup. So if you're the kind of person who's going to go to a startup, I think one of the things you have to look forward to is growth at a company. Actually watching the company grow is very, very cool. And you get to realize that you are truly part of that. It's a really interesting feeling, and I think if you're not paying attention to it, because it's kind of hard to always be observing it, but if you go say a year at a startup and you can see the growth of it, and then you're sticking around as the company's growing, it's a really good opportunity to reflect and say I am literally helping this entire company grow. Now, when you're at a big tech company, it's a lot harder to observe that kind of thing. For example, I don't go to Microsoft and I'm hey man, I added X% to the company's stock value, or I've revolutionized Microsoft. That kind of thing is very, very rare. So if you're going to smaller companies, you can literally feel you're having a whole impact on the business. Now, that's not to say what I do at Microsoft does not have company-wide impact. I actually am working on projects that do, which is exciting, but those opportunities feel a lot more rare, especially if you're just starting out. But when I was at a startup, we had interns that were helping build our automation pipelines for building, our CI/CD pipeline, and that transformed how our engineering teams worked, because we were before that using an intern to build he became a full-time employee, but we're using a guy's personal computer, using his work computer to build everything, and then we'd copy the files and ship them. It was just it's not good. You don't want to be doing that. So there's these things when the company is small that when you do them, you can have a very big impact. And I think that's a really cool experience as a software developer. So that's one. On that same sort of train of thought, it doesn't have to be at a startup. It can be a big tech company as well. But something that's really cool as a software developer, it's a lot more common if you're working in like a user-facing product area. So whether it's a shipped product, a website, if you're working on a platform, it's sometimes harder to like get this feeling. I just realized I'm in the fast lane behind this truck and he's not going the speed limit. See, I think before I realized that I wasn't mad, now I'm mad. So if you're like building user-facing products, you have this really cool opportunity to see people using what you've built, to get feedback on what you've built, and like it's a really interesting experience because it's like you build stuff, say you're building your hobby projects and it's fun or whatever because you're enjoying the process of building, but when you know that there's like literally people on the other end, and it could be hundreds, thousands, millions of people using a feature that you've built, like that is a really cool feeling. For me at the startup that I was at that ended up, growing pretty big, the scale that we were at in terms of like helping, the number of users and that kind of thing, obviously wasn't like a Microsoft scale, so not like planetary scale impact, but what was different for us is like we built digital forensic software, so we were helping like law enforcement, investigators, examiners be able to go help like basically prove like whether people were innocent or not, guilty or innocent. So a lot of that though got used like very unfortunately in like child sexual abuse material. So like it's a pretty dark kind of thing, like it's uncomfortable to talk about, but when you when you're building stuff and you know that you're helping with that kind of thing, like I can say to this day from a work perspective, there is nothing, and I truthfully don't ever think there will be, there's nothing that's been as rewarding as being able to work on that kind of thing to help out. We would have like, the users come in, like examiners, investigators come in and like present to us and explain how they used our software, to help basically catch pedophiles and kind of prove that they were guilty. And they would talk about the features and stuff they use, and if it wasn't something that you worked on directly, like you would know who else was working on it kind of thing, and you were like that's why we build this stuff. Like just the most rewarding kind of feeling to know that you help with something like that. So it's like just knowing that you have impact like that is pretty incredible. And it doesn't have to be like, in this case, I'm talking about digital forensics. It could be anything, right? Like if you're motivated by your company's mission, for us at the digital forensics company, it was a pretty powerful mission. But like not everyone's going to want to be behind that and do that every day. Say if you're working at like a green tech company and you're having an impact that way and that gets you excited, like awesome. So you have to look forward to, you have like these opportunities where you are having an impact in a space that you're very aligned with, that makes you feel fulfilled. So I would say like that's probably one of the big things. One second, my mouth is going to dry. We switch gears a little bit, talk about like people, I guess. You're going to be able to work with all sorts of different people, and I think there's a lot to learn about people interactions. I'm a little biased, obviously, because I am a manager, so a lot of my work is focused on people interactions. But I think that it's really cool personally that you have these opportunities where you can learn from like some of like, the most intelligent people, right? And maybe you have to work with someone who's super brilliant, but like maybe they're challenging in other ways. And maybe you're working with someone else who's like, maybe they're more junior, like, so, maybe they don't have tons and tons of experience, but they have such curiosity and they're eager, and you get to work with individuals like this where even if you're not like managing them, I mean, like you're seeing how they approach things, and it's like it's exciting to observe because they're just so into it. And I think as a software developer, again, you're going to be working with people, and I think if you sort of take some opportunity to like, I don't know, to like step back and think like, I'm going to be working with all sorts of different people. Some of it's going to be challenging for sure, but you have so many opportunities to learn from different people. And that's why I was trying to give an example. It doesn't have to be someone who's an expert at something. You can learn, like there's people that are, they're more junior, but they're so eager and they approach problem solving in different ways. And maybe you can learn something about that, right? Instead of maybe you're more senior and you're kind of stuck in your ways of like, hey, there's, we got to stick to these technologies, or here's what works. Like, look at the people that are more junior that are like, that are really taken off, and you'll probably see some traits that are pretty interesting, and it's worth reflecting on. So I think the people side is really cool. If you don't like people, like I said, maybe it might not be the field for you. Sorry, I got a bunch of lanes to move over. I do think too, like, it depends where you work, but like career progression can be fun, right? Like, did I just say that out loud? I mean, that's kind of weird. I guess personally, I don't think the nitty gritty of career progression is fun, but I think it's cool to think about that. Like, you have this whole, like, I don't know, I play a lot of role-playing games, right? So we are the character in our own role-playing game. And truly, you can take different directions in your career. And I think that's a really exciting thing. So I know getting started, obviously we talked about this in the beginning, like challenging times, yes, but it's always been challenging. But once you're kind of in the space, I'm not saying that it's it's necessarily like easy after that. Pardon me. Where's my voice going? It's not necessarily easy after that, but I think you get some experience under your belt, and you start to understand a little bit better like how things work in the industry. And when I was saying career progression is like exciting, I mean, you can think about where you want to go in your career. Like, do you want to be writing code for the rest of your career? Like, for me, I always want code to be involved in some way. So for me, it's different because in my career, I don't have that. So that's an interesting kind of pivot for me. But like, I write code every day outside of work. So I found a way to make sure that I still had something I loved, even without it being at work all the time. But you get to make decisions like that. You can decide like what industry you want to go work in, right? Like, what other, I'm sure people have examples of this. I'm not trying to say there aren't, but off the top of my head, I can't think of any other industry where you can say like, I am X, so I am a software developer, and then you can literally do software development in any industry that exists. You could be a software developer for agriculture. You could be a software developer for veterinary stuff, for medicine, for finance, for other software, for like anything. And I think that that's so cool because you can work in the space, and you might say like, oh man, this isn't my first job. It's not what I wanted. I can't be doing this my whole life. But yeah, you're in there now. Like, build some experience, learn how to build software, learn how to work in teams, and like, there's always other opportunities. There always will be. And for someone who's listening to me saying that and go, yeah, but what about AI? We'll do another talk on AI sometime, but like, things are going to evolve. I'm not saying that they're not. I think 100% they're going to evolve. But like, unless the entire world is just run by AI automation, and we already have robots that can do the physical part, like, there's still going to be jobs. Unless they have the robots repairing the robots, like, I mean, whatever, we're not going down that rabbit hole. But my point is, like, there's always going to be different industries that you can go move into, and there's always going to be different types of roles that you could explore. So if you are a software developer, maybe you do want to become a manager. I know one of the software engineers I work with at the startup company I mentioned, very early on, like, so I was managing people and he was managing product. So he switched from being a software engineer by trade to a product manager. And he's a very technical product manager, so he has like a bit of a superpower there, right? For some of you that have worked with product managers, like, it's kind of like as an engineering manager, I don't think engineering managers have to code. I've talked about this before, but a product manager, I wouldn't expect they know how to code, but when they can bridge the technical gap more easily, it makes having conversations way more effective, and that is a superpower. So I think that you have opportunities to explore that way in your career development, and that's kind of what I mean by, like, career progression is exciting. I don't personally find, like, how am I gonna, I don't know, like, work on this project and tie it to my career progress, like that. Like, it's important. I don't find that exciting personally. For me, like, one of the ones I don't find exciting at all is, like, visibility at work. Like, how do I do this, but also make sure that I have visibility across the organization so that people will acknowledge me for promotion? And it's like, I don't know. That's not exciting to me at all. But the idea, like, I'm a manager over engineers. When I was at that startup, I don't like talking about this stuff like I have I don't mean for it to sound like I'm stuck, right? Like I'm stuck in my ways, like, the startup that I was at. I like sharing because there's experiences there. But at that startup, before I left, like, I was basically, they were opening up like a director position, like an architect director position, and just basically forming it. So I would have been at a director level 4 years ago. That company's over 500 people now. So, like, I would have been a director, potentially a VP there now. And I would have been, manager over other managers without a doubt. And now, like, at Microsoft, I am a manager over software engineers, and I've been doing that for like 4.5 years. So, like, for me, it's exciting to know that there will be a day where I am managing other managers, and it's kind of funny because, like, from a career progression perspective, like, that's exciting to me, because when I started Dev Leader in 2013, my goal was to basically help other engineering managers. So for me, that's been a long time of like a long time coming. Like, I'm looking forward to that. So I think for other software developers, there's probably other things like this in your career where, you put the groundwork in and you work towards them, and that could be very rewarding. So yeah, I'm almost at the office. I don't know if that was too much of like a all over the place kind of look at things, but I think there's a lot to be excited about as a software developer. I didn't even talk about the pay. The pay is pretty good, depending where you're working, I guess, but the pay can be pretty good. You're generally working with technology that hopefully is like newer and kind of exciting. Not always, but like that's a possibility. So I don't know, like I have a hard time imagining other career paths. Let's put it that way. Like, I don't know what it would be like to go work in a different industry that's not software. Truthfully, like, it feels kind of weird. But I think in software development, we have so many different paths, so many different opportunities, and it's because software is everywhere. And you might not like how one company does it, and you switch to another company, and everything's very much aligned with like your philosophies on things. Like, there's just so much potential for cool experiences, in my opinion. So I hope that helps have a little bit of positive light. It's not like, you know, you're never going to get a job, and then when you do, it all sucks. Like, it's I feel like a little bit more positive than that. But for you to decide as you continue on your career. So I'm just going to park as I'm doing that, though. The topics that are coming up are day in the life topics. So someone said, hey, like, what does it look like? What's a day in the life of a software developer? And I mean, hard for me to answer because I don't do that anymore. No, but I can give some perspective. I can try to talk about like how things looked before, like at the startup versus at Microsoft. And then I'll do another day in the life as an engineering manager so you can understand that. I will film those in the car. I joked on something. My brain's mush. I'm not gonna bring you into the office or like even from home and like show you what I'm working on. Like, I'm not doing that, but I'll walk you through it. I just don't think that that's like a like privacy and security concerns for that. I don't want to like have a slip up of something where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have put that on the internet. And I don't edit these, so I'm not doing that. But we'll talk about it. So on the drive home, I will talk about day in the life of a software developer, and hopefully find that exciting. I just realized my camera's all over the place. Sorry, it's me now. Yeah, I think that's it though. So I will see you later. Take care.